Popular packaged foods often feature a mascot designed to be the face of the product. Tony the Tiger, the Pillsbury Doughboy, Morris the Cat, and many others have used their smiling faces to sell cereal, baking ingredients, and pet food. So it may surprise you to know that among the many familiar faces in the grocery store aisles, the grinning, mustachioed gent on Chef Boyardee products was not only a real person, but a genuine chef of some renown.
Hello, may I come in?
Today on Weird History Food, we're exploring the life of Hector Boyardee, the real Chef Boyardee. But before we get started, be sure to subscribe to the Weird History Food channel. After that, leave a comment and let us know what other classic food mascots you would like to hear about. Now, settle in with a steaming microwaved bowl of beefaroni and savor this true story of America's favorite chef. Chef Hector Boyardee was born in 1897 in Piacenza, Italy. Not surprisingly, with a very Italian name, Ettore Boiardi. He obviously had cooking in his blood. According to family lore, little Hector used a wire whisk as a rattle. And while this hasn't been confirmed, we assume he did the chef's kiss hand gesture to adjust his pacifier. At the tender age of 11, he apprenticed in a local restaurant, La Croce Bianca, long before anyone was paying much attention to child labor laws. An apprenticeship for an 11-year-old sounds impressive, but mostly he spent his time peeling potatoes and taking out the garbage. Even as a teenager, however, Hector had his sights set on America. After kitchen stints in Paris and London, where he actually was an apprentice, he sailed across the pond to Ellis Island at age 17. His brother, Paolo, had moved to New York years before and found work waiting tables at the Persian Room at the Plaza Hotel, going by the anglicized version of his name. Eventually, Paul worked his way up to the position of maitre d' and was able to get Hector a job in the kitchen. At the Plaza Hotel, the cooking skills Hector had shown as a boy began to blossom. Patrons were captivated by the dishes coming out of the kitchen, many of them recipes he brought from his hometown. Soon, he was promoted to head chef. Not one to sit on his laurels, Hector one summer got work at the Greenbrier Hotel in White Sulphur, West Virginia. There, at the age of 18, he oversaw catering for the wedding reception for none other than President Woodrow Wilson. Wilson and First Lady Edith Balling-Galt were so taken with Hector's cooking and organization that they later enlisted him to oversee a homecoming meal for 2,000 veterans returning from World War I. That's a whole lot of canned pasta. Shortly thereafter, Boyardee was hired to run the kitchen at Barbetta on 46th Street in New York, which remains in business today. Chef then got an offer he couldn't refuse, to be the head chef at the swanky Winton Hotel in picturesque Cleveland, Ohio. Hector then packed up and moved west. At the Winton, he met a young pantry girl named Helen Roblewski. The two hit it off and were married in 1923. As a head chef, he specialized in, surprise, Italian fare. His dishes gained a local following, especially his spaghetti dinners. Chef Boyardee worked at the hotel until 1924, when, at his wife's urging, he left to open his own restaurant, Il Giardino d'Italia, the Garden of Italy. The restaurant was a hit. Chef Hector's pasta dishes quickly gained a reputation, and demand for his food grew like blooms in a giardino. Italian food may have been familiar to Americans on either coast, but in Middle America in the 1920s, it was a revelation. Chef Boyardee had lines around the block. Patrons loved the chef's dishes so much that they began requesting recipes and products to take home. The resourceful chef complied. He cleaned empty glass milk bottles and filled them with his famous spaghetti sauce, adding some dry noodles and Parmesan cheese for good measure. Everyone was going buon appetito for Boyardee. Customers couldn't get enough. They brought the bottles back for refills. Eventually, Hector began charging for the meal kits. In a way, he'd accidentally invented HelloFresh, but he would wind up developing it in a slightly different direction. Chef realized he had a saucy hit on his hands. He also realized that his current means of production, his wife Helen stirring and sweating into vats of sauce and bottling it in the loft apartment where they lived above the restaurant, eventually would not meet demand. With the encouragement of some of his restaurant regulars, including a couple who owned a local grocery chain, Hector took over a food processing plant and began producing and canning the sauce on a larger scale. He persuaded his brother, Mario, who was in New York working with Paul at the Plaza, to come to Cleveland. It's a story about Italian brothers. There was bound to be a Mario eventually. The three brothers and Helen formed a partnership, and in 1928, the Chef Boyardee Food Company was born. The brothers' business began with 3 sauces: the popular tomato sauce, a mushroom sauce, and a spicy Naples-style tomato sauce. The slogan? 3 delightful flavors for a varied menu. When it became clear that sales staff and customers were having difficulty pronouncing the name of the company, the brothers displayed their collective marketing genius and changed the brand to Chef Boyardee, a phonetic spelling of their family name. Hector's great niece, Anna Boyardee, would later quote her great uncle as saying, "Everyone is proud of his own family name, but sacrifices are necessary for progress." Eventually, the brand lost the hyphens and became known simply as Chef Boyardee, and there, a legend was born. By 1936, the company, much like LeBron James in 2010 and 2018, had outgrown its Cleveland facility. Hector was dedicated to turning out a quality product, so he decided to get closer to the land. Farmland, that is. The Boyardees moved their operation to Milton, Pennsylvania, an area that was hard hit by the Depression, and enlisted local farmers to grow tomatoes. Hector commandeered an abandoned hosiery mill to open his facility, which wasn't just for mixing and bottling sauce either. Eventually, the Boyardees even grew their own mushrooms there. The company continued to expand its line of products and soon was selling full prepackaged Italian dinners, a meal's worth of dry spaghetti, a can of delicious sauce, and a canister of grated Parmesan cheese, all wrapped in cellophane, just like Mom used to pre-make. In New York, Paul had been talking up the family operation to an executive of A&P Supermarkets, which was the largest food retailer in the U.S. at the time. He persuaded the man to give Chef Boyardee products a shot on A&P shelves. Before long, practically every store was carrying the Chef Boyardee lines. Soon, the company was processing 20,000 tons of tomatoes a season. Additionally, Chef Boyardee became the largest mushroom producer in the nation and the largest importer of olive oil and Parmesan cheese. Chef Boyardee was the top-selling Italian food product in the U.S., and over time expanded its product line to include ravioli, pizza kits, and eventually beefaroni, which for those who were never children is macaroni in a beef sauce. The business was booming. As Anna Boyardee wrote in her book, Delicious Memories, Recipes, and Stories from the Chef Boyardee Family, it is fair to say that those three men, with no formal education and very little money, can be credited with bringing Italian food to America. When World War II erupted in Europe, Chef Hector and the company sought ways to aid in the effort. U.S. troops fighting overseas missed the comforts of home, so the factory began making army rations. Plus, cans of Chef Boyardee could make formidable projectiles in a battlefield setting. Beginning in 1942, the Milton plant was operating 24/7 to satisfy demand. And when they weren't busy with production, Boyardee employees would march through Milton in a display of patriotism, beneath banners that read, "Keep 'em flying, keep 'em rolling, keep 'em well fed." By the time the war ended, 5,000 people worked at the company, with output far exceeding that of the 1930s. In 1946, employees gathered for a celebration in Milton to commemorate the company's war effort. Hector Boyardee was awarded the Gold Star, one of the highest honors a civilian can receive. Despite their wild success, Boyardee and his brothers came to a difficult realization. To sustain the increased production demands and preserve all those jobs, they would have to sell. In 1946, Chef Boyardee was acquired by American Home Products for nearly $6 million. The U.S. corporation at the time held a variety of food and household products under its umbrella, including Pam cooking spray, Bumblebee tuna, Easy Off oven cleaner, and Preparation H. And while those products don't seem to have much in common with each other or with Chef Boyardee, there is one important trait they all share. You've likely heard of them. That's because American Home Products marketing division thrust many of these items, including Chef Boyardee, into the national television spotlight, turning them into household names. Hector Boyardee remained as a consultant for Chef Boyardee until 1978, and while he passed away at the age of 87 in 1985, his likeness is still displayed on the brand's packaging. Not bad for an 11-year-old kitchen apprentice. Chef's significant contributions to Milton, Pennsylvania were never forgotten. In 2013, the town erected a statue honoring him at the entrance to the factory. Plant manager Steve Smith said at the time, "We have a great legacy. My employees are so proud of the Chef Boyardee brand and the legacy of Hector." At the time the statue went up, Chef Boyardee had provided jobs for more than 10,000 workers in the Milton area. As one employee said, "It's my livelihood. I put my kids through college." Chef Boyardee continues to be invaluable to college students and any young person whose kitchen consists of nothing but a few plates and a microwave. It's also remained a staple of pop culture.
Say Chef Boyardee.
Chef Boyardee,
Although there was one crossover that the company could not get behind. The writers of the hit sitcom Seinfeld had proposed featuring a Chef Boyardee product in one episode. Referencing real brands was a common practice on the show. Junior Mint, Drake's Coffee Cake, Pez, and Snickers made their appearances.
It's a Junior Mint!
As did products like Snapple, Dannon Yogurt, and of course, lots and lots of cereals. If the show's lawyers thought a company might take offense, they would ask permission. But according to writers, most brands loved the attention, even if products appeared in a less than favorable light.
We're out of Bosco!
In the proposed Boyardee script, Kramer lands a gig driving a horse-drawn hansom cab. Because this is a sitcom, he also has a surplus of beefaroni due to some over-exuberant spending at a warehouse store.
Heat up. I got 34 more cans.
Kramer feeds the excess pasta to his horse, which makes the animal break wind uncontrollably to the disgust of his passengers. Chef Boyardee wasn't thrilled with the joke, so the beefaroni was changed to the fictional brand Beefarino. But we all knew, and we all know. In 1996, American Home Products spun off its food division into International Home Foods, whose products included Chef Boyardee, Gulden's Mustard, and other well-known brands with seemingly infinite shelf lives. Today, Chef Boyardee products are produced by ConAgra, one of the world's largest creepy-sounding branded food companies, which acquired International Home Foods in 2000. But Chef Boyardee still plays the classics: beef ravioli, spaghetti and meatballs, beefaroni, and lasagna, plus a bunch of other flavor combinations in mini and overstuffed versions. Available in cans and microwavable cups that will burn the shit out of your mouth even at the lowest setting. It's all part of the charm. In addition, the company sells pizza sauces and pizza kits, and other fun pasta dishes like cheesy burger macaroni, which sounds like a kid's lunchbox was in an accident. And although Chef Hector may have been confused by the request back in the 1930s, Chef Boyardee even makes cauliflower pasta for folks looking to cut carbs. So there you have it. After almost 100 years, Chef Boyardee, a dependable supermarket center aisle staple, is still going strong. And it all started with a real-life Italian immigrant who spent almost his whole life in the kitchen and promised America a delicious dinner for only pennies a serving. Bravissimo, chef. Bravo. So what do you think? What's your favorite Boyardee dish? Let us know in the comments below, and while you're at it, check out some of these other videos from Weird History Food.